be open to listen, right? Because you don't know what you might learn as you talk with different people, and actually allow yourself that what they are telling you actually really goes through your filters.
Welcome to a new episode of the Dev Device Podcast. Today I have Mr. Jure Bratkic with me. He is the CEO and founder of SkipQ. Welcome, Jure.
Welcome, Dana. Thank you for having me and hosting me on the show. Much appreciated.
Yes, of course. And this show only exists because of wonderful people like yourself who join me here and share their life stories. But first of all, I would like to know what is SkipQ? What are you doing? What is your business about?
Well, thank you. Thank you again for inviting me. To answer, Dana, your question, SkipQ is a mobile platform. It's a global mobile platform where we merge services and vendors which participate at airports on a single mobile application, right? So it means that as people travel, everything, what it's outside and inside airports, we put on a single platform. That means the transportation to from airports, parkings, and we added eSIM. This is actually what we consider outside airport. And then as a passenger, right, when you walk into an airport, whatever you see, right, these are from the baggage to lounges to duty free to general stores, everything there. So the idea is actually you purchase this in advance, whatever is that, the transportation from your house to the airport, or if you want to leave your car at the airport, right? So you purchase in advance the transportation, purchase in advance the parking spot, maybe purchase the eSIM also in advance. Let's say that you're flying from California to Kuala Lumpur, right, to Malaysia. I want that actually my phone acts as I arrive in Kuala Lumpur as a local phone there. So I buy eSIM in advance. And let's say that I'm passing through London. In London, I have, 3-hour layover time. I book a lounge for myself there. I know that there is a duty free where, I forgot for my friend to buy a bottle of whiskey, whatever, a sandwich, whatever might be, bam, in advance. So as I pass through London, I just pick and go, right? So grab and go. Like I just show the QR code, confirmation number, whatever it might be, which, tells the vendor on the other side that it was bought, paid, everything. And so that's actually what we do. And
Wow.
the app is in 4 different languages. It's English, Arabic, Spanish, and Russian. Right? As globally, right, you look at it, right, you want to tap, you want to cover as much as possible right off the bat, different areas. And then the one actually kind of like also interesting part is that we do even it's a, like I said, it's a very global. So we are incorporated in the US, but in the process of being incorporated also in Dubai and in Europe, right? So for different reasons, right? Often related to business partners, right? Because sometimes they feel more connected if the company is semi-local. And so, right, we didn't want to let that kind of opportunity just simply because we cannot be incorporated in some part of the world passage, right? So there.
That is a very, very unusual business model, which I have never heard before. You told me this story. I mean, this is unbelievable. And I can only try to imagine how to make this work because you must be speaking to so many suppliers. You must be, to make all this happen in all these locations all over the globe, there must be a lot of, creating this supplier connections and integrating these people into your platform. I mean, how do you do that?
Honestly, the idea came up. That was at the December 2020. We incorporated the company in the US, and at that time, actually, I called up 2 of my friends. One, Saba, she's in India, and another friend of mine, Justin, he's in Canada, in Toronto. And I said, guys, this is the idea. This is actually what I've been thinking about what do you think? Would you join? Not? Yes, right? And so they said, yes, absolutely, right? Let's do it, right? And so then it was first the market research, like to understand, what is out there already and how to even approach the industry and how to get more sort of like architecture, like the just in our head together. Then actually, then when we start the execution, that would be like really and we knew at that point already that we'll need to pivot. But like you said, absolutely right. It was the first part, the research, and sort of like now actually certain puzzles are already start coming together, but more so than get to the right people, get to start talking to airports, to different suppliers, to sometimes also companies which are sort of like I'll say like aggregators, right? It takes time. It takes time because actually you want to be as much as possible flexible because you don't know what kind of system, how well developed, or maybe not, right? There might be challenges like literally like from the IT perspective or from the sort of like just the whatever their database side, right? But you want to be as much as flexible. So regardless what the status is on the other side, you still want to have the inventory because here is the base of your users who would still like to, I don't know, buy a taxi or buy something in Kuala Lumpur per se, right, at the airport and take it wherever, right? So in that sense, yeah, and it's still ongoing process. It's not that actually we are done. It's still very much ongoing process, right?
I can imagine there's a lot of airports on this planet,
Yeah.
so I'm
Correct.
sure you're not done yet.
Correct, exactly.
And your user base are basically travelers. So anyone who takes an airplane and flies somewhere, he could benefit from this app by kind of, making their travel easier, like preparing bookings to the airport, from the airport, at the airport. So all this is kind of included in the app. Oh man, I cannot wait to try this out. Yeah, it looks sounds really exciting.
What maybe one like a really probably sort of like a cherry on the top of this is everyone is talking about the AI and big data and all that, but in an essence, knowing the industry and look from the airport perspective, right? I got to learn that through all these years, like the research, right? Like airport, unfortunately, very often doesn't know who walks into an airport today. Will that be Jure? Will that be Dana? Will that be, I don't know, Maria? Will that be somebody else, right? They don't know. And so consequently, that's why airports, they often so much rely on very nice stores, right? Because actually, when you walk, right, your eyes then you get attracted because actually it looks very nice. But talking from big data and actually having the user base on the back end, right, and people, at some point, hopefully, SkipQ will be able to come to an airport and say, look, these are the people who are going to be passing through your airport in a month, in a week, whatever, in 3 months. We know that actually this is sort of like what they like. How about we give you the option of pretty much like offering something through our app that we know that actually they might like. And it's not just about everyone wants a bottle of whiskey, because you have different generations, right? And some of them actually will say, well, you know what, for me it's really important that whatever the product which I buy is made organically, is actually like it has like some sort of environmental component. It might have something which is really like a handmade. It's not like a made chain, like there's a big chain back, right? So when you have that, and you can actually really tailor base to, let's say, Jure. Okay, Jure is really interested in, I don't know, in, let's say, like a handmade product. Okay, right? You will not probably offer him a bottle of whiskey, Johnny Walker, which is poured into those bottles, but you want to give him something which is more unique, right? And Jure is willing to pay for that, right?
There
These
you
are
go.
the
So you're
things,
also
right?
offering data to the airports. So
Not yet.
it's
No, not yet. Right, we are talking obviously under the umbrella of GDPR. It will never be Jure is the one, right? But knowing, because you can talk about the percentage and say, okay, well, 5% of people do have that component, which is important. Okay, through us, okay, well, we can see based on the behavior, online behavior, based on that, right? Say, okay, right? Why not, right?
yeah,
So
yeah,
there,
of
that's the
course. And that's where also the AI comes in, where your artificial intelligence component somehow
right, correct, right?
generates
And
this
it's
this data.
correct. I mean, right, you are, today, any website, let's say we're like a web-based company, right? They always track what is happening, where the users are coming from, what are they doing on the website, right? This is called like you're building the funnel, right? But at the end of the day, is that a website or is that an app? It's the same thing. Well, how do you track and what you really do, right? Not that actually you know that there is Jure, literally like Jure in the back, right? But there is a user with maybe just some unique code. Okay, well, this user with this unique code, right? This is actually what he was doing. This is actually what he was looking for. This is actually what he or she, because now actually I'm referring to a gender, right? But this person or this user actually was doing that. Well, I can predict that this is really what he or she was looking for. Right? And if I'm able to narrow down like really what it's interesting for Jure and be able to come back and say, look, Jure, I think that this is actually what you were looking for, a bottle of unique whiskey. Right? That is then where it becomes like the sort of like a really like a good AI component, not in a general sense, I'll say like certain platforms, which we all know, right? You buy a shoes and then all of a sudden you get 10 emails with different 10 type of shoes, right? Well, no, I already bought the shoes, right? I don't need the shoes anymore, right?
Yeah, I understand. That is very interesting and very unique, and it makes me even more curious about the young Jure, who I understand did not actually grow up in California. So
No,
let's
correct.
go back
Yeah.
a few years in time when Jure was 10 years old or so.
Correct. Yeah.
And let's meet him. Let's see what was happening with young Jure and how he
Gosh,
became
yeah.
the Jure he is today.
Well, yeah, well, born born in Europe, small. I mean, this country doesn't exist anymore, but at that time it was called Yugoslavia. 1991 came around, the country pretty much like fell apart, and so new countries out of that old country kind of like got established. Right, one of them was also Slovenia, where I'm coming from. Even though that on my birth certificate will always say Yugoslavia, right? That I was born in
Oh,
that country. But yeah, and as a young kid, enormous amount of energy. Give kudos to my mom, because actually, it was quite challenging. Let's put it like that. Growing up, the entire teenage and all that, even in college here, it was always like, it was never boring. Let's put it like that, right? For my mom, it was never boring. I do have two younger brothers, but all that to say now, at some point, coming from more kind of like a restricted type of an environment in a sense of like the country, we started as, let's say like the age of sort of like a 20, right? Like, what is an internet? What is a website? I'm sorry, right? What is a website? Learn that, right? Like, and with the having this kind of like a very idealistic view and idea of one day we'll go to United States, right? And
why United
us,
States?
why United States? Because it had like that, for kids coming from, let's say, post-communist country, it had like that sound to it, right? United States, so things are possible. It can be done, right? Like more of that. And
Freedom.
as a student, right, I traveled pretty much like the entire Europe, right? Summer times was a train, and I went around. But US was always like I've never been, and it was like to us, it was sort of like a, you know what? let's try it, right? And that's sort of like a naive perspective, right?
Yeah.
Kind of like led us to at some point, okay, well, today we are packing our suitcases and we are going, right? And
Wow.
that really happened, right? 2003 came around and we went, right? And it was the first company. Today you would call it a startup, right? So SkipQ is my third company.
Oh.
The first one actually was at that time as young kids, right? And we went, and it was for us, it was like, okay, well, either we make it, or again, we're going to be packing our suitcases and we'll be flying back home. That was the only alternative, right?
So you went to California in just with the purpose to open a business. That it was
Yeah,
not about like lifestyle and like checking and tourism,
no,
anything. So
no,
you just pack up your stuff and you
correct,
went
correct,
without checking it out first, without
correct,
visiting first as a
correct.
tourist. Is that right?
Never, yeah, correct, never.
Wow.
Straight,
That's, I call that very courageous. That's
straight, yeah,
entrepreneur spirits
correct.
right there.
So, so that's actually what it was. And then, years passed. We learned enormously a lot, because part of actually now today looking back, right? And today, let's say when we are, as we SkipQ, like the third company, right? Like as the SkipQ, actually we started and growing and developing and all that, right? We have done a lot of things. I've done, let's put it like, I'll talk to myself for myself, a lot of things very differently than looking back the first one, right? The first one coming from an environment where it was very individualistic and very like just you will always relying on yourself, right? That was actually good and bad in a sense of how much we've learned by ourselves, like the knowledge we accumulated, because we always had that perception we're going to do it ourselves, we're never going to partner with somebody, right? And so hence that's why we developed pretty much everything by ourselves. And then but then at the same time, right, you're developing, you're always relying on yourself versus, oh, you know what, I put together a team of people or companies together, or everyone comes with a certain expertise, certain knowledge, right? Like all of the sudden, comparatively, right, these guys jump off like way much faster at some point, right? Where you are still here, right? And so these were kind of like a learning lessons at that time. And once you start realizing and seeing that, of course, right, we adjusted. We, for example, we hired then a development team in Kharkiv in Ukraine, who then started coding for us, right? For example, a really cool thing, right? We were in California, we were in the United States. Well, those guys at some point were programming, writing software for ballistic missiles for attacking United States, right? But then at some point, right, the things change, right? The political regimes change, right? And so now all of a sudden you get to experience certain things which otherwise, you would not. But
Definitely.
yeah, it was like really interesting, I have to say, yeah.
Yeah, that's so you just packed your stuff, you went all the way to the US, you created
Yeah.
3 different companies, and SkipQ is the third one. And you settle down, so you're comfortable there. You would say you would like to stay there. You don't have any, you don't miss, you're not homesick, anything like that.
I mean, no, I am. So, I mentioned I have 2 younger brothers. One is a professor a professor slash researcher in Spain. And that's the middle brother, Arne, and the youngest one, Gregor, he's back home in Ljubljana. And he's how do you call it? Like a NICU nurse. So pretty much like he's a nurse for actually like babies when they are born and they have to go to a surgery for whatever reason, like right away. And so as they come from the surgery, that first IC unit, right, emergency care or so, no? And so he's a nurse there, no? So and mom and dad are still there. So I do go once, twice a year. I go back maybe for a month or so. Also part of the friends is still there, right?
Yeah.
So no, I do, I still have contacts with my.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah.
What was your biggest challenge along this journey? I mean, it sounds very smooth, very straightforward. You know, I packed my stuff, I went there, I built company, and I'm kind of guessing that it wasn't that smooth, in reality. So I'm just
Right.
curious, like, what were the biggest challenges you had on this journey, which is a very unique one?
Oh, I mean, it's the culture, man. It's always when you change the environment, it's the culture. You have to adjust yourself. Like you have to be open. You have to be willing to open to accept that actually, maybe your I don't know, your your point of view, your perception of things, not necessarily it's always the right one, right? And so when you change the environment and when you're willing enough to listen and to accept and to learn also, right? Then things starts to, all of a sudden your glass, someone would say it's half full, someone says it's half empty, or, things like that. And that very much shapes you, right? And in business in particular, right? Because you realize, hey, you're not always the right. Your decision is not always the best one. It's not always the right one. It's not always what how it should be done, right? And so it was not smooth. No, and you go then through like this emotional roller coaster, especially, right? You're young, the homesick feeling, being homesick, right? It's even stronger. Right? You have always that like, well, if it's not going to work, then I'll just go home, right? But at the same time, right, that's one side, but then on the other shoulder there is like a little guy telling you, no, just push more a little bit, like push just a little bit more, right? And so it was an adjustment, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, I see that. I see a common pattern in most people I speak with here. This migration background, I would say, and I think being an entrepreneur has a lot in common with, like, going to different countries, traveling across the planet, and being in completely new environments, and having to adapt to new environments. I think that's what entrepreneurship is about as well, because
Right.
building a business is never comfortable. I mean, you always have to face all these challenges and kind of find a way, in new environments to move forward, and that's what we kind of bring with us when we come from a migrational background,
Yeah.
because we're
Yeah.
kind of used to like being dropped in, like a new country, and we have to start from scratch, like with the language, with how people
Correct.
interact and all that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, we have a lot in common in that sense. Wonderful. I mean, I'm sure you have learned a lot of lessons, and I would love to share with our audience, what would be your nuggets of wisdom? What are the lessons you learned, and what you would like to share with those people who are maybe starting their entrepreneurial journey today? What would that be?
I'll probably say two things. One is actually like a very hands-on, I'll say, like sort of not maybe an advice, but kind of like when you're building your company, right? And you're getting to a point where you're launching, you're not big yet. You don't have that, let's say, like a triangle structure, or however you call it, hierarchical, right? However, but when you're still at the beginning, but you are owner of a company, you're getting the momentum. This is the time, and probably very often, usually as you're talking then with the more, like CEOs and owners for several years of companies, right, is the only time you have the chance to still talk to your customers, right? Like really, like those customers who come and actually, because you have the ability to present yourself just a random John Doe on the phone, right? They don't know that you are the owner, that you are the CEO, right? But you talk to them. That's actually like, that's a privilege, which then as you grow, you get more and more responsibilities, like different type, right? Your time allocated for other challenges and issues related to growing the company are taking way much more time, different responsibilities, meetings, etc., right? But this beginning time is actually when you still have that really touch with your base, who actually is making your company live, right? So people who are coming, spending their money, and actually making, you grow in an essence. And so using that time to still use that time to talk to these people, right? That would be probably one. And then the second thing, consequently, right? I mean, it's sort of like related, but be open to listen, like, right? Not getting trapped into I will say ego, or, like your work, but actually, hey, you know what? The fact that I'm here in this position, right? I need to understand that there are other people who are also working in whatever fields they are, or whatever actually their perception is. You still filter that through your head, but be open to listen, right? Because you don't know what you might learn as you talk with different people, and actually allow yourself that what they are telling you actually really goes through your filters, right? Not so the arrogancy, right? That arrogant part, that it's not there present, right? So, okay. I think then you'll be pretty okay.
Fantastic. Yeah, I really feel like you're talking to me, man, because I enjoy that part, to listen to people's story like yourself. And yeah, I must say it makes a big difference. And we learn a lot, just as you mentioned just now. Yeah, I mean, listening is a key skill in our lives, I guess. And as an entrepreneur, we need to be very good at that.
Correct.
Yo, Jure, that was fantastic. So I learned about Jure. I learned about SkipQ, a lot of new things for me. It was a pleasure to listen. And I would love to leave your details for those who want to connect with you, who maybe want to check out SkipQ, how it works for them. We make sure to leave everything here under the video. The links to, to maybe download your app and check out your website. And yeah, I wish you all the best of success, of course. Good luck and with SkipQ, and I hope we can stay in touch.
Correct.
The next time you fly to Kuala Lumpur, make sure you let me know.
That's right. Absolutely, I will. That's for sure. And thank you, Dano, again for having me today on your show. Really enjoyed it.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Thanks, man.
Thanks. Bye.